Alright, today I wanted to go through postage stamps, and one of the reasons is that I just watched a video from Exploring Stamps. Graham is the channel creator, and he basically needs a few more subscribers. He only has 39,000, or he's getting close to 40,000. We want to push him over that benchmark. But he's been doing the major stamp convention that they had. I can't remember if it was Philadelphia, Boston, somewhere in that area, I think is what that was. It's happened a number of weeks ago, but he's doing multi-part series, different interviews with stamp collectors and dealers and sort of thing, and it's very, very eye-opening because many of the things that people are showing are only worth a couple of dollars. Now, some things might be worth a couple $100. Every stamp that you find out there is going to be slightly different than the next one, for the most part. What I wanted to mention too is that I decided that, or actually I didn't decide, but Sports Cards has decided to leave me. I didn't leave Sports Cards, but Sports Cards left me. Unfortunately, on the flip side, I left Stamps. Stamps didn't leave me, I left Stamps, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of getting a little bit back into it, just piecemeal, and I wanted to share with a couple things here. Because I've been seeing a lot of people interested in history, and they're just ignoring the great stamps things out there. First thing that they mention is that they say, okay, stamps, I got a bunch of them. What are they worth? I don't know. Because they're going to eBay and seeing $4,000 worth for one 1-cent Washington stamp, the green Washington or Jefferson stamp there. And then you can go to eBay and you can get what they call bundleware, B-U-N-D, like bundle, like bundles of stamps, and then ware. That's what they call them in the stamp groups, bundleware. Or you can just type in 100 stamps and then filter out some of the results, and then you can find, lots of 100 stamps or less or whatever you want for $1, sometimes $1 shipping. There's a guy that does 100 stamps for $1 free shipping, and that's crazy. That's losing money, but he wants to get stamps out there to people that can arts and crafts with them, Geez Mikey style, or you can do whatever you want with them. Now these stamps here, unless I made a mistake, have virtually no value. The one in the backdrop that I've used many times here, the channel name here, and all different varying stamps here. I picked the stamps, some of my favorite ones, and I just got crazy tons of them for my backdrop here. And these were essentially ones that I believe that I soaked off. I can't remember exactly how I got these, but I've had literally tens of thousands of stamps that were just sent off to arts and crafts. I gave, hundreds, if not thousands, to a stamp club and said, you know what, I don't need these anymore. Now that I don't have a stamp shop, I don't have easy access. Some of these stamp vendors will probably tell you that getting 100 stamps for $1 is actually getting ripped off in some cases because they just have billions of them. Their goal is to get stuff to the people that need it now because later nobody might want it. But, if you think of it in terms like this way, we all can't afford a baseball card from the 1920s. Those things start up in like the $50 to $500 range for a basic 1920s or 19-teens era baseball card. But we can certainly afford a 19-teens or 20s era postage stamp from the United States or whichever country you so desire for in the 5-cent range. It's absolutely astounding. And again, many of these stamps that you see here in front of you, like the Jefferson stamp, you can find people selling lots of 100, 500 to 1,000. If you think about it, how many letters that they have to soak, and how to get those stamps off there. Why were they saving so many stamps? I mean, some people in the back of the day would save every stamp that they ever got in the mail, and if they got 10,000 pieces of mail, that's 10,000 stamps, and some of them had multiple stamps. If you remember, all the packages used to have stamps for every single corner of the envelope. It's like, my gosh, that's a lot of stamps. A lot of soaking, and the work is already done for you. Sometimes they'll be off paper and sometimes they'll be on paper. The bundles of stamps, the big ones in the Ziploc bag type of thing, the 1,000 plus or whatever, the postage is going to just kill you on that. So if you could find, now at our stamp show, we don't have anything for the regular collectors to have free stamps. They have something for the kids, and there are no kid stamp collectors showing up at the shows. Now, from Graham's perspective on exploring stamps, a lot of the stamp collectors were anywhere from in their 20s on up to their 60s. So, I mean, not old, you know what I mean? I mean, you know, they're not like, you know, I'm a 90-year-old stamp collector and I've saved scrimped and saved to get every one of these, only to find a stamp that was worth $12. That is not exactly how that is, you know, and a lot of us are not stamp tongs guys. You don't, you know, for this kind of stuff, you don't need to get out the magnifying glasses, the stamp tongs, and again, a lot of this is amazing stuff here. And again, you guys in my field of vision on YouTube send out a crazy ton amount of index cards. What I did for my index cards, I don't have an example here, but I put a Canadian stamp in the corner and send it out to people that originally resided in Canada, that played in hockey, or they were still in Canada, and they would sign those, and it was a much more legit thing that I would send out. I ended up, because I was putting a Canadian book together, crazy amounts of like 20, 30, and 40 of exact same stamp. And what did I do with them? So I was able to paste them on and do some arts and crafts with them to improve what I was looking for. Because you know on eBay, well maybe you don't, but the basic first day cover, here's a Buster Keaton college one from Mystic Stamp Company. It's not really my favorite cover here, 1994. This is going to be as like $2 or $3, but if you can get a stamp for 2 or 3 cents, you know, which works out to in some cases. Our old stamp shop used to do them 2 for a nickel, you know, and that was kind of up there in some cases. Other people's like, that's way too low. You know, when I go to the stamp shows, I don't see crazy amounts of like unsorted stamps. They're all been more or less sorted and gone through, but you'll find, you know, stamp you know, by the sheet or by the page type of thing. I wanted to show you the amazing kinds of history. Again, I don't have this document here. It's in a frame somewhere. But I found an Oregon Territory document. Again, in an Exploring Stamps video, somebody grabbed an envelope and unfolded it and folded it, and the history just got better and better and better. But I found something from the Oregon Territory before Oregon was a state, and the guy said, oh, this piece of paper, just give me $10 for that. And I said, sure. It was like some sort of land trade. Amazing. I could have a $100 document. I could have a $500 document, a $5,000 document. I have no clue what it is until I figure out who the people on there, if it's somebody super famous. But where are you going to find another one of those? At a stamp show for $10 whole. And it is more exciting than any kind of box break that I've ever seen. I was like, this is awesome. And so I went to the Goodwill Superstore type thing, you know, a thrift store, if you will, and essentially I bought an antique style frame and stuck it in there, and it looks like it's been there for 75 years, and I think that is awesome. Now I wanted to show you a more obtainable piece of history from 1979. This is the Oregon Dune Mushers, North Bend to Florence, a mail run, okay? I'm not exactly sure what the Dune Mushers were, but this was canceled at 2 different times. That's North Bend that canceled it, and Florence right there. And this was probably a stamp club that put this together. Charles R. Wilson was one of the mushers or somebody involved in the event there. I think I found a Facebook post where that was somebody's grandfather. So I think he's more or less than passed away based on the time frame and the 90s and so on and so forth, so he's probably no longer with us. But I looked on eBay and there was a lot of 3 different ones of different days. If you didn't know, the Oregon Dunes is kind of a I'll say wetlands, but you know what I mean, or it's a dry land, you know what I mean. It's hard to explain, but there's a state park and it's all kind of semi-protected and stuff like that. So what can they really do on the dunes? You know, they have the dune rides and stuff like that. So I'm not 100% sure what is still allowed these days on the dunes, but it's a neat piece of Oregon history, and somebody made this. It's much more better than this commercially made computer-generated thing here with Buster Keaton from Mystic Stamp Company. It is really nice that Mystic has basically put all of Buster Keaton's data on the back of that, so that is something to be said. Whereas a lot of the baseball cards have Zippo on it, and you know, that just doesn't make nothing. It's just crazy. So we got a neat piece of Buster Keaton history. If you have anything that goes with that, that makes a nice display with that. But the sales price, it was a buy it now price, the 3 envelopes, and one of them was just loaded with signatures, and that went for like $6, less than $6, and was a buy it now plus shipping. So, you know, again, and you can do your own little display. You know, think the way I wanted to essentially display my collections back in the day. Think of going to like a state fair where they have like the county, different counties, and display their stuff there. Or you go to like a gallery, with a nice black frame or whatever, and you wanted to display things like a museum. You have your own little mini museum in your house. And that's what a lot of card collectors do. But you can do that with stamps and anything, and any kind of price. But again, the history is there, and it's insane how many stamp videos, again, I learned about Roman coins recently this week too. I knew a little bit, but since I had picked up my Roman coins 10 or 12 years ago, I now have learned so much more. Why are Roman coins so worthless, to the degree that they are? Why are this happening, and why is this happening? Why do we need to verify this, and what is the deal with the stamp thing, and what's the reasoning for these people? Because anybody could put any price that they want on it, and that instantly throws off the balance, and people don't know what they're looking at. So they got a pile of stamps, and nobody has any kind of I want to say my friends are all ADD, but a lot of my friends are like me. They think about something and they're on to the next subject and the next subject and the next subject. I just talked to a guy like that yesterday, and before I could finish my sentence, he was like, so what about this? So what about this? So what about this? I'm like, oh my gosh, and these are things that have like these multi-part answers that I couldn't even answer. So in a couple of sentences, he just wanted a couple of words, and I had to give him a couple of paragraphs. I couldn't do it. He's like, well, what's the stamp worth? And I'm like, oh gosh, and it's like $5, that's it, it's that sort of thing. So, but again, if I have basically goofed up something there, I can always soak these stamps on here and replace those. But yeah, so again, one of the things I always stress here, like this thing came in a collector's lot of, actually it came in a lot of stamps that was sold to me as postage. So I found this, and that's worth more than postage to a lot of people. People would pay upwards of like a couple bucks for this sheet. So there's only 32 cents on here. I think those are 8 times 4 is 32. So yeah, if you could get $2 out of it, you've actually beat the system and paid more than the original postage on it, or obtained more. And people will pay that because people put these in a book, and they will have every permutation, the little number there, all this fun stuff, and that will be their, a corner piece for their collection. And then maybe they can write up a blurb about that. This would be great for getting people into school projects, because you do a little report on, the Mars rover or some sort of lunar lander or something like that, and then you got the stamps to go with that, and there's nothing to be said. And again, something to be said, and you can throw this in baseball card sleeve if they fit, but they don't usually fit. They stick out a little bit, so use the tall boy sleeves there that they have for the larger baseball cards there. Or, if worse comes to worse, a Ziploc bag, but there's plenty of it. And here's another one that came in some used for postage type of thing. And it's a block of 4 that's never been used. Somebody hung on to this for a very, very long time, and it's never been hinged. So this actually has more value than the stamps on that. But if you don't handle this carefully, this will come perforated very, very quickly, and unperforated or whatever you want to call it, and then you'll just have to use them as stamps, or you'll have a very mint copy for your book there. My mom said that you weren't supposed to put brand new stamps in your stamp book, only canceled used ones. That made them official. That's what her mom told her. And I have a feeling that you weren't supposed to go back in the 1950s. You weren't supposed to go into the parents' stamp collection and filch them for your books. Filch the stamps of your books, because stamps were actually worth something back then, and people, needed them to be used up instead of, so why waste a stamp and throw it in your book? And if it was already wasted, soak it off the envelope and you got a good enough example for your book. And some canceled ones are actually worth more than the uncanceled ones, if that makes sense, based on the cancel on it, but sometimes they're worth more than the whole envelope. So people have gone and canceled soaked off thousands and thousands of stamps off of envelopes. I found first day covers that had the corners clipped off. I found all kinds of interesting envelopes that had been chopped to pieces because the first day covers maybe had somebody's name on it, maybe got water damage, or maybe somebody just thought the stamp was worth more than the whole entire piece. Again, they do that with postcards, and unfortunately thousands of dollars worth of postcards get destroyed all the time because somebody rips off the corner stamp or soaks it to reuse it or to basically throw it in their book. And it's like, oh man, you just destroyed, a $50 postcard to pull off a 4-cent stamp. That's now been canceled, and that stamp is worth, 5 cents at the most. And then you will also find out that people are trying to sell it for $1,000 to $4,000 on eBay, only to find out that those stamps that are beat up in condition are basically need to be recycled because they've got water damage, mold, corner rips, all kinds of stuff there. They look like they just came out of a garbage lot. But again, you can go to eBay and type in things like 500 stamps, 1,000 stamps, whatever amount that you think that you can find, 100 stamps, 50 stamps, you get 50 stamps for $1, that's 2 cents a stamp. That might be getting you, it's going to take me a year or 2 years to put together a 100-card baseball card set. And that's going to be at least a minimum of $1 a card on eBay or whatever websites you prefer. And then you get a bunch of stamps. It's only like a penny versus $1. That is a great way of doing things. Sometimes you basically have to find your favorite sellers, and they only upload when their stuff is gone. So if you find stuff that's $1 or $2, it's worth the price of admission to buy a few stamps from those vendors, wipe out a couple listings, and then they might put up some better listings or listings that you really want to have, and you're still within that range of acceptability of price-wise. And then you have stamps you can give off to the local stamp club, any kind of people that are collecting for this or that. People will find these stamps at a like a rummage sale type of thing, your church rummage sale, and somebody might buy them. Said, hey, that's really cool. It's like, well, here's stamps, $2. You might only have $1, and it's like there's 100 stamps for $2. That works out to X amount of cents. I could probably buy stamps on eBay and then do a table at a swap meet and sell them like candy. Sell them in great bags, and then tell them, have these posters saying the history, all these different fun things you can do with that. And that would be a fun setup to just do stamps and stamps only. But you would want to basically make sure that whatever stamps you're doing, make sure that you've got your good stuff off of one side, and there's just too many avenues. But the reason why I'm bringing this up, not to necessarily give Graham necessarily some more for exploring stamps, if I said that too many times, give him some more subscribers, but essentially he breaks it down to all of the, the low-end common denominator. He loves getting mail, so that's what I've sent him some mail, and I've gotten mail back from him, and it's just really cool to get, custom envelopes. That's what they do in the stamp collector groups now, is they do a lot of customs. They're ACEOs of stamp collecting. It's a really fun hobby. But we'll just go through this very quickly to be under 20 minutes here. Show you like the Patrick Henry dollar stamp there that has virtually no value, the Jeffersons, the Lincolns. And for the 250, we got a good bunch of presidents on there. Sinclair Lewis is not a president, neither is Thomas Paine, but we got a 4th of July flag there. We got, the American flag there, jukeboxes, things that make, America uniquely America. We've got flags, some planes. There's another Washington stamp there from like the 1930s. I think that's really cool. Again, a 1930s baseball card is going to cost you more than that stamp cost me. That stamp essentially was $0 to me. The Jeffersons and the Benjamin Franklin, who was not a president. Some people get that wrong. Monticello, it looks like we have there, and Thomas Dewey, Frederick Douglass. I don't know if that's Patrick Henry right there, but it's just very, very cool collection. Somebody saved these for all these years, and they only ended up worth like basically a penny or more for these stamps each. And somebody saved these for 50, 60, 75 years, and now they're in my collection. Do what you want with stamps, but explore it, learn stuff, and take the time to enjoy the hobby, and thank you for watching.